Today we are going to be talking about the 16-year-old kid with leprosy who defeated Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt. In 1161, Baldwin IV was born. His father, Amalric, became king of Jerusalem in 1163 after Baldwin IV's uncle, Baldwin III, died. But the nobles did not like his wife, so he was forced to get an annulment. But he made sure his kids were still eligible to be his heirs. When Baldwin was 9, he was sent to live with William of Tyre. But while Baldwin was living with William noticed that when Baldwin was pinched by the other kids, he didn't react the same as the other kids. He didn't seem to feel the pain. William talked about it saying, quote, "He was playing one day with his companions of noble rank when they began, as playful boys often do, to pinch each other's arms and hands with their nails. The other boys gave evidence of pain by their outcries. But Baldwin, although his comrades did not spare him, endured it altogether too patiently, as if he felt nothing. After this had occurred several times, it was reported to me. At first I supposed that it proceeded from his capacity for endurance and not from lack of sensitiveness, but when I called him and began to inquire what it meant, I discovered that his right arm and hand were partially numb, so that he did not feel pinching or even biting in the least. I began to be uneasy, remembering the words of the wise man, 'There is no question that a member which is without feeling detracts greatly from the health of the body, and one who does not realize that he is sick is in danger.' The lad's father was informed of his condition, and physicians were consulted. Repeated fomentations, oil rubs, and even poisonous remedies were employed without result in attempt to help him, for as was recognized in process of time, these were the premonitory symptoms of the most serious and incurable disease which later became plainly apparent. It is impossible to refrain from tears while speaking of this great misfortune, for as he began to reach years of maturity, it was evident that he was suffering from the terrible disease of leprosy." End quote. So the king hired Arab doctors to treat the boy, but they did not diagnose him with leprosy because if he was diagnosed with leprosy, he would be required to become part of the Order of Saint Lazarus, which was a military order made up of people who had leprosy. Plus, at the time, there were no visible symptoms. But Baldwin was a determined young man. He learned to ride his horse, but then tragedy struck as King Amalric died in 1174, leaving 13-year-old Baldwin as king, but if he was proven to have leprosy, he would be removed and his sister Sibylla would replace him. But until then, Baldwin would be king. But wait, Baldwin was only 13. He can't rule until he is 15. So a regent would be appointed to rule in Baldwin's place for the time. But when King Baldwin was old enough, he took power. Baldwin decided that Saladin, the famous Egyptian ruler, had to be stopped from expanding. So Baldwin planned to attack Saladin, so he led an attack around Damascus while Saladin was in Aleppo. And despite his affliction, Baldwin refused to pass his military duties on to another person. And around this time, Baldwin's sister Sibylla got married to William of Montferrat. So Baldwin offered to abdicate and let William take power, but William refused. Then, in 1177, William came down with malaria, which eventually killed William. The death of William of Montferrat left Sibylla alone and pregnant, and Baldwin didn't have somebody to help him with his attack on Saladin. Then Baldwin's cousin Philip I of Flanders arrived to help Baldwin. Later, Philip left for Syria to attack a city. So Saladin used this as an opportunity to attack the kingdom of Jerusalem. Baldwin met Saladin near Ramla. Baldwin caught Saladin completely off guard, and despite having a fraction of the soldiers that Saladin had, King Baldwin's army absolutely decimated Saladin's army. Baldwin had between 3,000 to 4,500 men, while Saladin had between 21,000 and 26,000 men. But Baldwin's army fought ferociously, with even Baldwin fighting. Saladin was almost captured even, but he escaped on a racing camel. When Saladin got back to Cairo, he only had a fraction of his men left. Later that year, Sibylla's son, Baldwin V, was born. Then, in 1179, Saladin defeated Baldwin twice at the Battle of Marj Aryun and the Siege of Jacob's Ford. Then, in 1880, Baldwin arranged for his sister to marry Guy de Lusignan, and the treaty made between Saladin and Baldwin was set to expire in May of 1182, but it was broken by Renaud of Chatillon in 1182 when he attacked a caravan of merchants. So in 1182, Saladin again attacked the kingdom of Jerusalem. In the summer of 1182, Baldwin and Saladin met again at the Battle of Belvoir Castle. This battle ended with a Crusader victory. Then Saladin attempted to siege Beirut, but after Baldwin started moving for Beirut, Saladin abandoned the siege. But by 1183, Baldwin was not able to walk and became blind. so he appointed his brother-in-law as regent. Then Saladin laid siege to Karak, so he removed Guy from power and returned to power. The blinded and immobile king joined his men, but when Saladin heard Baldwin and his army was coming, he fled. In the last years of his life, Baldwin appointed his nephew King Baldwin V as his successor, and appointed Raymond III, Count of Tripoli, as his regent. On March 16, 1185, King Baldwin IV died because of his leprosy at the age of 24. But after his death, his nephew was replaced by Guy, and 2 years after Baldwin IV died, Jerusalem fell to Saladin. While Baldwin was alive, he accomplished so much in his short time as king, and to this day he is remembered as a great king and military leader.